electric, you've got a higher power.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Norfolk for another solar update. It's the 3rd of August today, so we're covering July's solar and energy update video. I thought I'd come out to the garden today and shoot it outside. I thought it'd be nice and quiet up here at the end of the garden, but yes, it's not been quiet. First, the farmer decided to spray the field, and second, we just got photo-bombed by some sort of it looks like a very young goldfinch just decided to land on top of the camera tripod. So these commentators and professionals must do a really good job without being distracted, because as soon as a fly buzzes me, or a bird or a tractor, I lose my focus and concentration and have to stop. So yeah, credit to the professionals. Anyway, month of July, what's it been like? Well, weather-wise, it's been a mixed bag. There's been a week of glorious sunshine where it was crystal clear blue skies and really warm weather, so hot in fact that it was degrading the performance of the solar panels. Because if you're not aware, solar panels don't perform when they're hot. So in really hot weather, when they're already generating heat, they get a little too hot and don't generate their peak performance. So I was seeing power levels as low as 4.5 kilowatts when we should be getting a peak of 5.7 kilowatts. So I was losing a kilowatt of power just because of the heat. So on a day like today, where it's blue skies, it's very warm, probably 21, 22 degrees with cloud, then we're going to be generating peak performance. The solar panels are working really well. Add another 5, 6, 7 degrees on top of that and get rid of the clouds, then unfortunately you lose some power. System wise, as you'll know from a previous video, we removed the Inverter battery and we're now testing a Huawei battery. So it's out with a 5.2 kilowatt hour battery, in with a 5 kilowatt hour battery, and out with an AC coupled 3 kilowatt inverter, in with a 3.68 hybrid inverter. So it's the panels are connected DC, and the battery power and the solar power are coming through the same inverter. So if you want to know more about hybrid inverters and the difference between AC coupled and how we're getting on with that, have a look at my previous video for the change that we made between Inverter and Huawei. But other than that, not a lot else has changed. We are doing some investigations into getting more solar panels, so I'm submitting a DNO application to add some more power. I'll also be looking at what battery to test or install next, and yeah, a little bit of big news, but I'm not sure how big a splash it's going to be when it actually happens. I hear we might be putting a wind turbine in the next couple of months. A company has approached Power Different to see if they want to stock and sell a certain wind turbine, and of course what they need to do to know whether they can sell it to their customers is try it out. Well, who do they know that they could rely on to do a good test and doesn't mind their system being changed backwards and forwards a few times? Yep, so wind turbine it might well be. Not a big one, just a small one, but that's what most of us are thinking about, isn't it? We don't want a huge turbine spinning away, making some noise near the house. What we want is something small, innocuous, you don't really notice too much, but generates just enough power to keep the battery topped up, or in the winter, adds a nice little bit of power on a windy day. That's what we're looking for. So that's coming soon, but in the month of July, you know, what has happened? Really not a lot. I'm starting to prepare for winter because I do notice that the sun is dropping behind the house a lot earlier these days. So we've probably lost a couple of hours of solar generation in the evening. It probably gives up around 7:30 now, where it used to last all the way through till about 9:30. So the sun's trajectory is changing and we're getting less solar energy already. So winter's on its way. Yep, winter's coming. So I've been stocking up with fuel. If you haven't again seen in a previous video, I'm thinking this year I'm going to try and manage without our oil boiler. So I'm going to not turn it on to heat our hot water and not turn it on to heat the house either. So we're going to rely on a wood burner that we have and electric radiators. Now, yeah, I know wood burners and all the emissions and people not liking them, those sort of things. Well, I'm trying to get rid of them one at a time. So you'll have to bear with me that the oil boiler is the first on my list to get rid of, so supplementary heat source is the wood fire, so it's the stove. We do burn dry wood only. It's both seasoned when it arrives and we season it for another few months as well. That's why I've bought the wood in the summer to help dry it out absolutely completely ready for the winter. and we only buy from a sustainable place. So these trees that are being cut down aren't being cut down for firewood, they're being cut down to manage the woodland and to coppice the areas. So these trees are going to be felled anyway, and they're either going to be laying there to rot, which I guess is good for the insects, but it's also a source of energy and a source of income to keep that industry going. One day the fire will go. Yep, one day it will, and I guess I'll have to have a shrine to fire there and have a load of candles in the fireplace instead. But at the moment, it's a really handy feature to have to top up the heat in the house. So for those that hate wood burners, really sorry about that, but for those that have got one or don't mind them, yep, that's what we're doing. What other things have been happening in the month of July? Well, I've test driven 3 electric cars. That's been one thing. So I test drove the Fiat 500 and didn't like it. I test drove the Ford Mach-E, which I was extremely excited about because I'm a Ford man, and I really thought that the Ford would be exciting, that it had the Mustang DNA and it would be a high performance, sportier car. But it just wasn't. I'll do a video on it eventually. I've got some footage, not the ideal footage that I wanted, which is why I've taken so long to produce the video. But I've got some thoughts, and I thought I'd share them with you so that you can see what the Mustang E is like from my perspective. But it's just not for me. It's a giant soft SUV, and I didn't like that. The third car I test drove was courtesy of John Tisbury, the other YouTuber who talks about solar and all sorts of other good things. He let me drive his Model 3 Performance, and yeah, that is much more like me. Not just because of the performance, but the way it felt, the way it handled, the way it was put together. It just felt a better car. It's more of a driver's car, and for me, that's what I need. I don't need a box on wheels. A lot of these SUVs these days just look like shoeboxes. So out of the 3 cars I've test driven, the Fiat 500, the Mach-E, and the Model 3 Performance Tesla, yeah, the Model 3 was definitely the car for me, and the star of the show. Our Solaredge inverter, which is 8 300 watt panels, 2.4 kilowatts with a 2 kilowatt inverter, that produced 300 kilowatt hours, 300 exactly. The Huawei Hybrid inverter, which has replaced our Solace inverter, that produced 497 kilowatt hours. Now, interestingly, the Solaredge inverter this month generated more than last month, but the Huawei inverter, Huawei, if that's how you'd like to pronounce it, generated less than last month. So proportionally, the Huawei inverter isn't producing the same amount of energy as the Solace inverter. The Solace inverter was producing more. So I'm down on energy this month as a result of this change to the Huawei battery. How much by? Well, it's about a kilowatt hour a day, and that has had an impact of 20 to 30 kilowatt hours over the month. So yeah, our generation is down a little bit this month, and I can see that in the statistics, looking at the Solaredge generation going up this month, but seeing the Huawei one going down. So proportionally, the proportions of energy we're generating between the first array and the second array has changed by 3 or 4%. Which is something interesting to think about, isn't it? When you're thinking about getting a battery solution, if you're going to go for a hybrid one, then what will the inverter produce and how efficient is it? And not all inverters are the same. Just because you put 3 kilowatts of solar panels on the roof, you're not going to get the same generation from inverter A, B or C. They're different. And one of the things that really annoys me is people that say, oh, Solaredge are the best because you get 20% more generation because of their optimizers. They optimize every panel individually, and therefore you're going to get better performance, even on a clear day with no shade, etc. And it's just not true. I've got a system here where we face virtually south, a little bit east, we have no shading whatsoever, and Solaredge does not produce 20% more than the other 2 inverters I've tried. It produces proportionally the right amount against the Huawei inverter. It's exactly as it should be with my 3.9 kilowatts versus 2.4 kilowatts of solar panels. So the Solaredge inverter isn't producing a bad amount, but it's not producing more than the Huawei inverter. And it is producing, the Solaredge is producing less than the Solis inverter did. So yeah, that does annoy me that people rave about Solaredge and their performance, but their performance is only better when there's shade involved. And there'll be people that disagree. Well, you have a look at my stats and you prove me wrong. Maybe it's my inverter, maybe it's the SE2000, doesn't perform well, but maybe other inverters do. Who knows? So the question is, what have we done with all of that solar energy? Because we had 497 plus 300, that's 797 kilowatt hours, almost 800 kilowatt hours of energy, which is a huge amount, isn't it? We consumed roughly 530 of that, according to the Myenergi app, and we exported about 242 or 246, can't remember off the top of my head, kilowatt hours back to the grid. And that works out at about a 65-35 percentage. So 35% of what we produced, we sent back to the grid, which isn't ideal, but since on the FIT scheme I'm being paid a deemed export of 50%, I'm doing okay, that's not so bad. So out of those 797 kilowatt hours that we generated, what did we consume? And the Myenergi app reports 220 kilowatt hours for the house. It also reports 141 kilowatt hours into the Eddi for hot water, and 171, or was it 172? I can't quite remember, kilowatt hours into our Zappi, charging our mini electric and a friend's Model 3 Tesla. So in total, the Mini Electric had 19 charging sessions for the month, and you can see here a much lower figure reported by the Mini app of kilowatt hours that went in, because it's measuring it inside the car, so you've got some charging losses to account for. Plus also we charged somebody else's Model 3 Tesla, and also the Mini app has got a couple of sessions there that it had missing. So there's a lot of variations between what the Mini app is showing and what the Myenergi app is showing for kilowatt hours that we put into electric cars. But it works out that we're driving the car at roughly 5 miles per kilowatt hour, and roughly 4 miles per kilowatt hour is what we're getting in reality from the energy we're putting from the house into the car and then able to drive on it. So including all the losses, etc., 4 miles per kilowatt hour, but just measured in the car about 5 miles per kilowatt hour. We did 605 miles, so we're starting to do a little bit more mileage now that lockdown is eased, and yeah, regardless of whether we're locked down, it actually feels like I'm able to get out a bit more. It feels a little bit safer now. We're all double jabbed, or most of us are double jabbed, especially the people in my age bracket. So I'm happy to be out more, and hopefully that driving will increase and we'll see over 1,000 miles a month. That's what we should be doing if we go out as much as we were before coronavirus hit. It's worth mentioning that those 220 kilowatt hours measured by the Myenergi app for house usage now does not include battery charging, whereas with the Give Energy battery that we had before, it was AC connected, so the Myenergi app saw the energy that was going into the Give Energy battery. Now that the battery is DC connected with the hybrid inverter, the Myenergi app does not see the battery charging. So we've got 110 kilowatt hours that went straight from the solar panels into the battery that aren't included in the 220 kilowatt hours for house usage. We've then got 141 kilowatt hours that went into hot water and 172 kilowatt hours that went into the Myenergi Zappi device as well. Now, out of those 220 kilowatt hours for the house, there was some air conditioning as well. We've got a couple of smart plugs, and I monitor the energy usage of large consumers, so things like our portable heaters and also the portable air conditioning units. I measure the energy for that, and I think we've used about 65 kilowatt hours of energy for air conditioning. There was 1 week here in July that was an absolute stonker of a week. It was so hot and uncomfortable. The air conditioners were running all day, and that's one of the things you really notice when you've got solar panels and a battery as well to help with that. That on a cold day you can heat yourself for free, on a really hot day you can cool yourself down, and it's just those creature comforts that you probably wouldn't do as much if you had to pay for the energy. I mean, would I have bought a couple of air conditioners and paid for the energy? Probably not. I'm a bit of a tight-fisted git, so I probably wouldn't have done. And I find the same with electric cars. Now that the energy is for free, I don't think twice about driving somewhere. I don't think about the cost of using the car anymore. Where with the petrol or diesel, especially with the price now and how high petrol and diesel is, you really do think, how far am I going to go? How much is it going to cost? Is it going to make sense? And for us now that we've got both a petrol car and an electric car, that conversation about how much will it cost and is it better to take our electric car really comes into it. I'm off on a trip tomorrow to Whiz Beach. It's 65 miles each way, so 130 miles. If we did that in the petrol Mini at 50 miles to the gallon, it's 3 gallons. Call that 20 quid. £20 off petrol usage. Where in the Mini Electric, we'll just go there and back, use the energy that we're put in for free from the solar panels, and then the next day we'll top it back up again. It's all for free, so we just don't think twice about the cost of driving, and that's what I absolutely love about the combination of electric cars and solar panels. That freedom, the freedom that it gives you to do more, to go more places, to use air conditioning, to use portable heaters without thinking about the cost. You just don't have to worry about it. So rather than the cost, what I'm thinking about is, can I get away without using the grid at all, just trying to maximize my own consumption of my own generated electricity. Energy independence, that's what it is, isn't it? And it really comes into play now when you watch energy prices going up. Today I had a look at the OCTOPUS website to look at what their flexible tariffs and their other tariffs other than Agile and Go are, and to see what the price of energy is, and it's between 18 and 21 pence a kilowatt hour. The price of electricity has gone up. It's not just that the Agile product is high because wholesale prices are high. The energy companies are putting the prices up. They have to, because wholesale prices are going up. So because of that, does it affect me? No, because I only used 5 or 6 kilowatt hours this month. I only paid for £1, you know, well, 6 kilowatt hours times 15 pence or 20 pence, so £1.20. I probably spent £1.20 on electricity this month. So whether it's 10 pence, 20 pence or 30 pence a kilowatt hour, doesn't matter to me this month because I'm using my own, and that energy independence is one of the great reasons for going electric and putting solar panels on your house, heating hot water with something like the Eddi device, and of course having an electric car. One of the things I like to do with the data as soon as I get it is have a look back historically to see what's going on and make sense of the data. So looking at our generation this month in July compared to the last 2 Julys, we've only had solar panels for a couple of years now. You can see that July is very typical. We've had very similar generation for each of the 3 years, and only this small variance with changing inverters this month. But when you look at things like import of energy, you can really see that in the early months when we started. We didn't have a battery, we only had solar panels. So you can see a lot more import from the grid, even during the summer. The dip that curves down from winter down to summer and then back up to winter again. You can see the pronounced curve there between when we didn't have a battery and then how low it goes, much, much lower for the year where we did have a battery. And that first one was a Victron inverter with a pure drive battery. And then equally, you can see the difference as we had the Give Energy battery later in the month. You can see that the amount of energy we were consuming from the grid, even in the peak summer, wasn't quite as low. But July, this month, you can see right on the end there that the levels are as low as they were when we had the Pure Drive battery with the Victron inverter. So the Huawei and Pure Drive are performing for us much better than that Give Energy one. Now, I think in the last video I said one of the negatives about Give Energy was their efficiency. Well, lo and behold, just after I released that video, I've heard that they have improved their performance. So instead of taking 10-20 seconds to ramp up or ramp down, they're now taking about 5 seconds apparently. Now I can't prove that because I don't have the system here anymore, but that's really good news if it's true. It's really good news for Give Energy customers that it is now more efficient, because it was the one thing that I've consistently said was holding me back, that I wouldn't choose it for because it just wasn't efficient enough. So well done Give Energy for releasing a firmware update if you really have fixed that. Thumbs up to you. So yeah, looking at grid import over the last couple of years, it is good to see the trend and good to see where we are, and good to explain why it's so low. And it's so low now because we have great solar generation. We've got 6.3 kilowatts of solar panels, and that's probably a little bit more than we actually need. But that really helps in months where there isn't a lot of sunlight. Having more than you need helps when the weather isn't so bad. And that's the reason for me oversizing, putting more solar panels in than I actually need. So if we look at the export graph now and look at that over time, we can see that there's a really odd anomaly there in the last 3 months, that we've exported exactly the same amount of energy for 3 months, 242 kilowatt hours. It really is an identical number. I think it's 242.68 and 242.8 and 242 exactly. So within 1 kilowatt hour, it is identical. There's no particular reason for that. The system configuration isn't limiting it or controlling it in any way. It is random, but an odd thing to see. But what I can see in this chart is what's been happening over the last couple of years on export. If you look at the first year, we didn't export very much at all. But then in the second year, 2020, we exported quite a lot. One, we had more solar panels, but two, we weren't driving the electric car because we were in lockdown because of coronavirus. So we didn't have anywhere to put the energy that we were generating, and hence we exported a lot more. This year, we're now driving more. We've got the car that we can recharge back up, so we're exporting less again. So that's really good to see. And it's just nice to explain, isn't it, over those years, you know, why the numbers look different and to understand what's going on. And talking of numbers making sense and explaining them, so our generation of those two solar arrays, the 300 kilowatt hours and the 497 kilowatt hours, if we look at the number of kilowatt hours per kilowatt of solar panels, then these are the numbers that we see for our two solar arrays. Should be here. And that number's a really good measure because you can compare that to see the effectiveness of your solar panels. Now, we're south facing, so the sun rises over here, which on camera is probably reversed, so it's probably on the other side. But anyway, sun rises here and goes up over the top and sets on the other side, completely facing the solar panels. Whereas other people might have solar panels pointing more towards the east or more towards the west, and hence they might not get the same amount of generation for the same number of kilowatts of solar panels they got on the roof. So that comparison of the number of kilowatt hours we're generating per kilowatt of solar panels might be of interest for you to do your comparison. And let me know in the comments, how are you getting on with those numbers? Are your solar arrays doing better than me or worse? I guess earlier in the year I might be doing better because I'm facing just slightly eastwards, but people that are pointing more westwards at the moment are probably getting better generation because of the arc of the sun at the moment. Anyway, it's horses for courses, isn't it? Wherever you live, you get what you get, whether your house is pointing that direction or you're further north or you're further south. You're just lucky where you are. I'm quite lucky here. We're 10 miles from the coast, and I understand that coastal areas get better solar generation generally. So we do quite well here in Norfolk. Yes, I guess it's a bit nerdy watching solar panels and watching kilowatt hours being generated and then analysing where you're all using it. But it's do you care about it or don't you? If you care about the environment and you care about doing your bit and installing solar panels, then just buying them and putting them on the roof, is that enough? If you could make it better and optimize things by another 10-20%, is it worth spending a little time analyzing it? That's my point. It's not just a nerdy thing to do. I mean, I am a data sort of person. I do like it, but it's nice. It's nice to know that you are getting the most out of what you are buying. It's nice to know that you are optimizing it for your own usage as much as you can. And that's why I do like doing these graphs. I do like looking at the data and understanding it. It really helps me understand what I can do. I think it's a really important thing to say that if you're thinking about adding solar panels or a home battery storage, and then you're going to ask questions of other people to say, what should I go for? What should I look at? The first thing that I think you've got to do is understand your own energy usage. So spend some time analysing it. Every month for a few months, look at how many kilowatt hours of energy you're using. Get some smart plugs and work out where you are putting your energy, where you're using it. Count up how many wash loads you're doing and try to measure how much energy you're using on a wash load. Try to measure how many times you're using the oven, and could you use alternatives such as air fryers and those sort of things, or mini ovens. Are there alternatives to how to do things? And if you understand your energy usage more, then you can apply it to a system that might be appropriate for you. If you just go ahead and buy a battery and buy solar panels and don't think about the configuration and how that will match how you use energy, then you probably won't have an ideal system. So my recommendation is analyse the data, analyse the numbers, work out how you're using energy and how much you're using. Then you can think about what sort of system that you need to optimise it. There's my advice anyway for when you're starting out with solar panels. Look at the data. We're very, very lucky here. Being a retired person, I get to use a lot of my energy during the day. You see a lot more people with solar arrays and batteries that they're charging the cars up overnight because they need to commute again the next day, they're working, and that just doesn't happen for us. It's extremely rare that we charge up overnight, and the only time we would do that is if we have to go out the next day and we've had no solar energy the previous day. So then we'd have to charge from the grid to make sure that we can use the car to get where we want to go. So it's a rare situation because that having to go is the issue. If we haven't got the solar energy and we were planning on doing something, well, I'll just do it the next day when we've had some sunshine. We can change our schedule and we're not living by a watch and a clock and a schedule at all. So we are very lucky here that we can optimize our usage because our time is free, and that really does help. So, have I covered everything? We've covered solar generation and the numbers, we've covered import and export, we've covered the battery. Yeah, battery, there's one thing that's different again. I looked at this piece of data here that shows 110 kilowatt hours of energy going into the battery and 106 kilowatt hours coming out. Now that's very different to what we saw with the Give Energy and the Pure Drive batteries because they were AC to DC batteries, weren't they, being converted. The losses on this Huawei battery, which is DC connected, are much, much less. It's only something like 3% loss. Okay, that's it for the month then, so thank you very much for watching, really do appreciate it, and for all those people that have subscribed and do like my videos, giving me a thumbs up, thank you very much. It really helps with the algorithms, so if you've given me a thumbs up and subscribed, you're an absolute star. But also, those people that are stars, 5 people this month have used my referral code with OCTOPUS Energy. So OCTOPUS Energy is the right company for them, and they've chosen to use my code. I think most people send me messages saying that they've chosen to use my referral code because they want to give back because of this work that I'm doing, sending out YouTube videos. So to say thank you, they're using my referral code. Thank you very much to those 5 people that have used it this month. That really helps. That's £250 to me to help buy new cameras, new tripods, new camera mounts, all sorts of things for these videos. So it really does make a big difference. So again, thank you very much for doing that. So take care, see you again soon, bye for now.